With the Four Nations this year and the Olympics next, the All-Star Game as we know it may be dead. And honestly, I could not care less. A 3-on-3 tournament with an awkwardly long skills competition, yeah, the event is typically a bit underwhelming. Which is too bad, because I feel like the All-Star Game used to be kind of cool. When I was a kid, sure, the game still sucked, but the hardest shot competition was hype. Chara versus Weber had you on the edge of your seats, and then you had Patty Kane going full Superman in the shootout. It was cool. Today, it feels like we don't like taking the same risks. If I was a player, would I want my 1 week off per season to be spent playing meaningless hockey for free in some random market? Or would I want to just go chill on a beach in Mexico? Well, honestly, I'm not even a player, and I know when it comes to my time off in the winter, I have no interest to stick around in my cold Toronto climate to work for free. They've tried to incentivize the All-Star Game with $1 million check split between the winning team, but come on, I mean, $100,000 would be a lot to any of us, but for most of these athletes, it's not as big of a selling point. So how do we make the All-Star Game fun again? Well, to me, it's you do exactly what we're about to see this year. You replace the All-Star Game with something fun like the Four Nations. The NHL should look long and hard at entering a 4-year cycle with an international tournament every 2 years. Winter Olympics and then World Cups in between. In the years off, just give the guys some well-deserved rest. That's how I'd solve it, and I mean, I just don't think a traditional All-Star Game has that same appeal. And hey, that's just my opinion, so let's get into some more. So welcome into Top Shelf, presented by Skyscanner. I'm Aidan Thakkar, joined by the guys John Matisz, Levi Smith, and making his return after a couple-week hiatus, Kyle Cushman. Guys, no All-Star Game this year. Are you going to miss it? Because I obviously am not.
No, not really, to be honest. I'm pretty over it. Like, it's great for kids. The NHL does it to appease sponsors and basically kiss babies and, you know, shake hands, all that kind of stuff. I'm ready for the Four Nations. I'm pretty over the All-Star Game.
The two things I think I'll miss from last year was like the celebrity cameos.
Sure.
I thought that was going to, especially that Michael Bublé quote. Like that was awesome. I think that's like the first time
Mushrooms.
the NHL All-Star,
Yes.
like any sort of media, like NHL made it mainstream for everyone. Like everyone saw the Bublé clip. I remember talking to like some football people who work in football media, and they're like, "Oh, the Bublé, were you there? Was it crazy?" I was like, "It was pretty wild."
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not really gonna miss the All-Star.
I mean,
game.
we were there. I don't know if Kyle, the three of us were there last year. That was the first time I've been to one, and even still, despite us being there, it was like, this is getting tired. So, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna miss it.
I like how they pick the teams. I don't know if you like
it's
that,
every
Kyle.
like couple years or 3 years, whatever, and it's a bit more special, then maybe I could see it becoming a bit more fun again. But like every single year, the same sort of thing in different cities, it just gets tiresome.
Well, we are going to talk a little bit about this again later on in the show, but before that, Thursday night is actually the midway point of the season. So I want to start the show off by talking Midseason Award favorites, who's got the award wrapped up, who doesn't. I feel like there's a few awards that I think are wrapped up. Like Connor Hellebuck is so far and gone, like in the Vezina conversation. I think he's got that one pretty wrapped up. The Art Ross McKinnon's got a big lead, but the Hart Trophy is, I think, up for debate. And I think there's a lot of guys who've got a really good shot. I think there's 6 or 7 guys still like under 10-1 odds, which is pretty good for halfway through the year. So, Levi, who is your Hart pick right now?
Yeah, it's nice to see this isn't one of those trophies that's locked up, considering it's probably the most important in the league. But I'm going not really off the board. I think he's third in odds right now. Kirill Kaprizov. It sucks that he's hurt right now because just his totals don't look as pretty as some of the other guys, and I think he's still top 10 points, which is pretty impressive. But the sole reason I'm really going with Kaprizov is, most valuable player is, in my books, the guy that if you take him off the team, it's going to impact the team in a negative way the most. And what he's done for the Wild this year has been incredible. He's got 50 points in 34 games, which broke his own record in terms of franchise records for the fastest, least amount of games to get to 50 points. But this Wild team doesn't have anyone else over a point per game, and I think that's what's most impressive about what Kaprizov's doing, because you look at some of the other candidates, McKinnon, Kucherov, McDavid, Draisaitl, those guys all have other players on their team also producing, whereas you've got Kaprizov, who's lifting up his entire team and getting all these guys points. I think the next closest guy in points per game on the Wild is Zuccarello, who's 48th in the league in terms of points per game. So, yeah, and the other thing about him and what's so impressive about the year he's having is so much of it is coming 5-on-5. He's got 39 of his 50 points 5-on-5, and I think he's contributed. He's been on the ice, for 66% of the Wild's even strength points, which I saw that number and I was like, I don't know how I go any other direction with this. So he's not going to finish the year at least leading points or goal scorer or assists, but I just think the value he brings to the Wild, it's eerily similar to when they gave Taylor Hall the Hart Trophy a few years ago. He didn't lead the league in points, but he brought that Devils team into the playoffs, and I think Kaprizov's doing the same thing this year.
We're talking about a Minnesota Wild player as a favorite for
Yeah,
the
it's
Hart
wild.
Trophy. That's pretty crazy, huh?
It's wild.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, just to hit back on Levi's main point there, like, if you think about who's next in the pecking order in Minnesota, it's pretty much what? Matt Boldy, Brock Faber, fantastic
Rossi,
players,
maybe?
but
Yeah.
this isn't McKinnon to Makar or Rantanen. This isn't, let's just say Marner to Matthews and Nylander. Like, he has way less to work with. And I love that he's a 200-foot player, too, and he's physical. Like, he's kind of the full
Feisty
package.
player.
Feisty player. Like, I think if he was Canadian, he'd probably get more love day to day, right? Like, he's got the sort of Russian factor working against him. One guy I'll throw at the wall, though, is Leon Draisaitl. Leads the league in goals with 29. 9 of them game winners, which seems abnormally high in terms of the percentage there, 9 to 29. Second in primary points, second in total points. And he's been playing with Arvidsson and Podkolzin. Like, fine players, but, let's face it, they're more like third-line players than second line, which Draisaitl is when you have McDavid on your team. So I wouldn't bet on Draisaitl winning just because McDavid always makes it difficult. How do you sort of, kind of weigh the value there of both guys? But I got to give Draisaitl a lot of credit. And, McDavid did miss like 5 games, so there was a bit there where Draisaitl was the guy there. But he's been lights out.
How many Hearts did Malkin win? Was it?
I think
I think he had 1 year when
It was the 1 year when Sid was out with the concussions.
Yeah.
And Malkin just torched the league.
Yeah.
And Draisaitl's got one already, too.
Yeah.
It was the pre-COVID. It was the COVID year, I think, the 2019-20 maybe.
That
think
sounds
so,
about
yeah.
right.
He
Somewhere
did it.
around there.
And I don't know. I look at it now, and I think everyone said he's having the best line mates of his career coming into the season with Skinner and Arvidsson, and neither of those guys have been what they were chalked up to be.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, he's probably having one of the best seasons of his career, and he's been better than McDavid on both sides of the ice.
That's the key for me. The defensive side is the big jump that Draisaitl has made.
Yeah, so I think he's got a serious case, but the guy I still think you can't count out is McKinnon. I mean, he's looking for a second straight MVP. He's got, he is the favorite right now to do it, and Colorado is not the team they were 2 or 3 years ago. They are not deep. They're starting to get healthier again finally, but that early stretch of the season where it was just McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, and
a bunch of nobodies.
Literal nobodies. They had a 7th-round pick from
this.
this summer's draft playing in the lineup.
Ivan was getting quality
Yeah,
minutes.
he's still getting minutes.
He was
Yeah.
a serious, and McKinnon still is just been unbelievable. And if you're looking to check him out live in person, make your travel to Denver easier and more affordable with Skyscanner. Link or bio to get those deals. I want to move over, though, to the Norris Trophy. One of McKinnon's teammates, Cale Makar, leading contender there. But it seems like it's always just a battle between him, Quinn Hughes, and then the third guy they just throw in once a year. It was Karlsson, it was Roman Josi, maybe Dahlin gets in there. This year, Zach Werenski. Those are the 3 guys with realistic odds to do it. Betting markets-wise, do you guys agree? Who do you think has it of those 3?
I mean, I think Makar has a good case, but I'm going to go with Hughes, and a lot of it is based on what he has to deal with in Vancouver. We've talked on the show about the sort of soap opera between Pettersson and Miller. Well, guess what? They're not producing to their standard. So even, off-ice stuff aside, on the ice, Hughes is not getting the support he used to. Hronik's been hurt. Demko's been hurt. Hughes, even though he's had some time off, he's been kind of the one constant. And the on-off numbers on Hughes are just outrageous. So at 5-on-5, I'm going to try and remember these numbers. Shot attempts when Hughes is on the ice for Vancouver, 59% of the shot attempts. When Hughes is off, the Canucks are at 43%. And then for scoring chances, it's the same thing. 57% with Hughes on, 43% with him off. Massive gaps. And then you go to goals, and this is all at 5-on-5. 63% of the goals for Vancouver at 5-on-5 when Hughes is on the ice. It goes all the way down to 44% when he's off. So they're basically a lottery team when he's not on the ice.
The numbers are damning there.
And then they're a playoff team when he is on the ice. And it's you marry them together and you see where they are in the standings, and it kind of makes sense. But he's just such a driver of everything that they do there. And, he has the puck a ton. He's really good defensively. And I just think that the dark cloud over Vancouver, as far as what's been going on there, is sort of overshadowed how well he's played this year.
I'm going to go a step further. He's my Hart Trophy guy right now in the season.
Right.
It's been a long time since we've seen a defenseman go out and win the Hart Trophy. But you mentioned it, the on and off ice stuff that Vancouver's dealing with. He's leading the team in points. He's leading the league in even strength usage. He plays such an important role. You mentioned some of the on-off splits. Basically, as you mentioned, they're the splits when he's on the ice, top 3, if not top team in the NHL based on the numbers, and bottom 5 team when he's off the ice. When you look at the active defensemen on the roster right now, so excluding Philip Hronek, Hughes has more points than every other active defenseman that the Canucks have on the roster.
Combined.
It's
Combined? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
The next highest scoring defenseman they have on the roster is Tyler Myers at 10 points.
Well, all right.
The puck moving ability and everything that Quinn Hughes brings when he's on the ice, no one even comes remotely close on the Canucks with him off the ice. So the overall impacts that he's having, I think he's been definitely the best defenseman. You can obviously make a case for Cale Makar. He's been excellent as well, and the defensive numbers have kind of rebounded. But in terms of specifically looking at that value to the team aspect, Quinn Hughes is as good a case as anybody else in the league right now for the Hart Trophy, let alone the Norris.
I want to make sure Zach Werenski, though, does get some flowers because the fact that the Columbus Blue Jackets are even in the playoff hunt right now, like after like the tragedy that happened this summer, losing their best player, Johnny Gaudreau, and then Zach Werenski, who's like consistently injured. It feels like he's always missed his time, like long periods of time every season. Then he comes out this year through everything and is just putting together an unbelievable year. If the Blue Jackets make the playoffs, Werenski will get significant votes in consideration because he will be probably the reason why. Him and I guess Kirill Marchenko, who's now one of the best players, point producers in the league.
He's so much fun.
That's a whole other story, though. We're not going to get into Marchenko, but we should sometime because I actually need
He rules.
He rules. He's awesome.
And Voronkov.
Yeah, and just rips the puck too so much. Next one though, Rookie of the Year. We're going to do it. There's 3 guys. It is a 3-headed race, and I think it's awesome because it's just like there's 3 great stories here. There's Macklin Celebrini, the 101, comes in and is just like, he's been better as a rookie, I think, than a lot of people expected him to be.
Yes.
Then you have Matvei Michkov coming over from Russia, and he's taken that step that a lot of people thought he was going to before his draft year, and then people kind of got down on him for some reason. I don't know. And then Lane Hudson, who's just tearing it up as a defensive rookie, and I want to give my guy Dustin Wolf some flowers.
I was going to say, three rays.
But he's like 1,000 to 1 to win the award because the
He's
other 3,
a long shot.
because the other 3 are just so far ahead of him. Out of those 3, though, who do you got right now, Kyle?
It's been fun to watch the Calder race because Celebrini had that early stint where he was out of the lineup due to injury. And Michkov, it felt like, was taking that big step to maybe run away with it a little bit. But then he had some healthy scratches. His numbers have kind of evened out a little bit. And Celebrini's just taken off since he's returned to the lineup. He's been such a driver on the Sharks that he's my pick right now. And I think if he stays healthy and kind of gets to play the rest of the season, I think it's his to lose right now. Lane Hudson has had a really great stretch recently, especially the underlying numbers, as the Habs have gone on this great run recently to kind of put themselves in wildcard contention. If Lane Hudson continues that over the course of the season, if the Habs somehow make the playoffs, then it becomes a different conversation. But for me, Celebrini, what he's doing right now, the game that he's playing, like his puck battles and his impact on the Sharks, he looks like a 30-year-old veteran, not an 18-year-old youngest player in the NHL. Like, the way that they're using him right now is fascinating. He's centering a line between Colin Graff and Will Smith, 2 guys that also came out of college last season. They're utilizing him as that kind of veteran-type center between 2 young guys who are figuring it out at the NHL level alongside of him, except he's the youngest guy on that line and the youngest guy in the NHL. I think a lot of people coming into the season expected Celebrini to play a lot with Tyler Toffoli or Barclay Goodrow or some of these veteran-type players who have been in the league, know what they're doing, can play in the defensive zone. And what we've seen from Celebrini already is that he doesn't need that. He can handle himself in his own zone and against top competition by himself, and he can help bring up these young guys already along his line. I've loved this game so far this season. He's been so much fun to watch. He's my Calder pick to the midseason point.
You mentioned the puck battles. He's actually top 5 in the league in puck battles, 1 per game. Like, very
Which is
niche
crazy.
stat, but it's Sportlogic tracks that stuff, and the type of players you see there are like, John Tavares and these sort of like, Ryan O'Reilly, like really like battle tested veterans. And what's interesting to me is that he's not just appearing in the top 5 there. He's top 5 in controlled entries. He's top 5 in cycles off chances off the cycle. Like, the process is really, impressive from Celebrini, where it's like he's hanging with the superstars in the league on sort of the back end of things, and on the front end, obviously, we're seeing him produce a point per game. So it's like basically no negative notes on this guy throughout his first 30 games.
Well, it's the physical maturity that I think is the most impressive part, because he's so young. Like, he was one of the younger players in the draft class, let alone in the league right now, and he doesn't get hit. And you mentioned the puck battles and the cycle chances. That's all physical maturity. Like, you think about the Crosbys, the Tavares, like those types of players and what they do on the cycle and the chances that they can create. And Celebrini's doing that already at 18 years old. It's very, very impressive. So he's my Calder guy.
Fun fact, too, I'll add on to the Celebrini love. I believe he, through 30 games as an 18-year-old, had the 10th most points ever. He was 28 points, 30 games, almost a point per game. And the guys above him on that list, it's like everyone you'd expect to see, Crosby, Gretzky. So definitely he's raised the bar a lot more, even though he was the first overall pick. It's just, I think our standards were a little bit too low for him. And he's been awesome.
I think people expected him to be like a step below Bedard, but he might be a step ahead of him at this point. I think the thing that's interesting for me is we're talking about these awards mid-season right now. And for the Hart and for the Norris, the guys we've talked about, the McKinnons, the Kaprizovs, the Makar, the Hughes, they've done this over a full year stretch. When we're talking about the Calder, Lane Hudson and Macklin Celebrini, for example, have not played 82 game seasons, not even close to that.
That's going to be a grind.
At the college level. So it's going to be, I think that's going to be one of the most interesting ones to watch down the stretch is how long do these guys' legs last? Can any of these guys, I mean, probably the only one with a chance right now that like looks like they could get their team into the playoffs is Hudson in Montreal, but that's going to be a battle for that second wild card.
But Dustin Wolf, to circle back, like if he becomes the top dog there, I know he's been splitting like literally 50-50 with Vladard. If he's the top dog, continues to play well, Calgary makes the playoffs, I know it's really difficult for goalies to win the Calder, but he's going to be at least top 3 if that happens.
That the chase down for that award, and I think all 3 of these awards, as we've been talking about, is going to be really interesting to watch. I love that the Norris just seems to now be Hughes, Makar, and something
Every year.
Every year. Yeah. I think we're going to look back in 10 years and be like, wow, we were spoiled watching these 2 generational defensemen go head-to-head for a better part of a decade. Want to move on. We said we were going to talk about it earlier. That is the All-Star thing. I was hinting at it. The one thing I think I'm going to miss from the All-Star game is when the NHL would come out with their All-Star teams and everybody would complain about them because they suck.
Yeah.
Yes,
so what are we going to do is we are going to give out our All-Star teams for divisions, and then you guys can complain about them. The way we're going to do this, because we don't have that much time, we're not going to do the whole like 11 roster thing, but we're going to do 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie per division. Levi, you'll start with the Atlantic, and in true NHL dumb fashion, you can only pick one player per team. So no just loading up on like Colorado, Winnipeg, because that's all the Central would be really. You got to go and get into the thick of it with at least players on at least one player from the bottom 3 in each division. Levi, you can start with the Atlantic, and you guys can let us in the comments how bad of our teams, like how bad we picked.
Yeah, that's that one thing we didn't even mention off the top about why we don't like the All-Star game is the fact that they make you have a player from every team, and
participation award, right?
It's the worst. We don't need to get into it, but I'm starting with the Atlantic Division, and I'll go player by player here. First guy off the board, Mitch Marner. He's 4th in the league in points. He's really stepped up in the absence of Matthews. Nothing really bad to say about him. He's such a good facilitator, and he's scoring a little bit too. I think he's got 14 goals right now. So I got Mitch Marner. That's my Leafs player on the team. Next up, Nikita Kucherov, another guy. He's done this time and time again. It's nice to see like how he's transitioned. I know Stamkos hasn't been great the last couple of years, but just he's not a Stamkos merchant. We've come to find out he's getting the guys like
Stamkos
Hagel.
might have been a Kucherov merchant.
Oh, he was.
It's a discussion some people aren't ready to have, but like you see Hagel, Sorelli, Braden Point, like he's just the way he's facilitating that offense and making sure everybody eats there. Time and time again, he's always been so good. And then last forward, another guy who's having a big kind of prove it season, Sam Reinhart. Of course, he had so many goals last year, and what does he do this year? Scores so many goals. I think he's 7th in the league right now in goals, on pace for just under that 50-goal milestone. And if I have to pick a guy from the Panthers, I think you could look at Barkov or Tkachuk as always, but just the way that he's kind of established himself this year after what he did last year as a real good goal scorer has been really impressive for me to watch. On defense, a couple curveballs here. I kind of realized the Atlantic defensemen aren't as strong as I think some of these other divisions are. So first I've got Rasmus Dahlin, who's been basically the only guy representing the Sabres in the All-Star game for the last 3 or 4 years now. He's just, they have to send somebody. It's always him. I think he's deserving of it.
Remember when they sent Zemgus Girgensons, though?
that
was
was
when the
last
Sabres
time.
had to send someone and they sent
awesome.
Zemgus Girgensons. That was great.
Just being able to say that he was an All-Star down the road, like
Fourth
that's
liner, like a year
so
later,
nice.
still the worst team in the world.
But yeah, Rasmus Dahlin, I mean, the captain there, just under point per game. He's really the one bright spot of this team. And so if I have to pick someone from the Sabres, it's going to be him. He's a great player, though. I'm not saying he's just there because he's on the Sabres. The other defenseman I have, rookie, we were just talking about him, Lane Hudson.
Nice.
This guy leads the Atlantic Division in points by a defenseman. I think he's very deserving of the spot, especially given he's got 30 points in 40 games. And they were hesitant to get him on the power play and get him incorporated. And just to see the way that he's running the show there has been incredible to watch. I don't think that you could say, obviously, Victor Hedman, but I think it's one of those recency bias things where I've just seen him in the All-Star game so many times that.
You got Kucherov already. You can't even
Yeah.
go to Hedman.
And that was the debate I had. So I figured, go Kucherov. We'll leave Hedman off the list. And then in net, he's injured right now, which has been sad to see. But Linus Ullmark, he's he was a big piece in turning this team around, I think. And since they've lost him, they're like 1 and 4. I want to say he's 7th in goals against, 7th in save percentage. If there's anyone from the Sens I think is deserving of an All-Star spot, I would go with him.
All right, so no Bruin.
No
and
Bruins.
No Red Wing.
Yeah,
Probably fair.
Yeah, probably fair at this point. Like Pasternak doesn't deserve to be there. I think the only thing my only thing was maybe is it Barkov? Like I feel like that's the argument for Reinhart, but I feel like you can pick either one of those guys.
I would consider swapping Kucherov out for Caulfield and then Hedman in for Hudson. That's the one thing that
Kucherov's
maybe
so good.
comes to
I like
mind. But
that.
Kucherov doesn't care about the All-Star game.
it's
Yeah.
true.
Oh.
That's true.
Like
That's a good
Kucherov
point.
might care
That's my
about our
thought.
pseudo All-Star
Okay,
game.
that's
The stakes
true,
are
that's
way
true.
higher
That's a
here.
good
Yeah.
point.
All right, let's get into the Metro here, Kyle.
Alrighty, starting things off, the Carolina Hurricanes are a weird team because it seemed like Martin Necas was going to be the guy early in the season. He has like 3 points in his last 11 games. He's really cooled off recently. So I went Sebastian Aho for my forward representative for the Hurricanes. Just a consistent guy who's having another solid season. Maybe not the goal scoring that he maybe expects, but consistent guy at the top of the lineup for one of the better teams in the Metro. Second for the Metropolitan Division, Sidney Crosby. The Pittsburgh Penguins still kind of weirdly in that mix. Crosby has just consistently been the offensive presence, clearly the best player on that team still. And looking at the defensemen as well on that roster, not really anyone to pick from there. Definitely not the goaltending on the Penguins, so Crosby was the easy pick there. And then rounding out the forwards, Jack Hughes from the Devils. There was a couple Devils guys that I considered in this mix, but Jack Hughes is just so far and away one of the most fun, crafty, creative players. Looking at an all-star game format as well, he's one of the young stars of the game. I had originally considered a couple different forwards and going with somebody else from the Devils, particularly in net, looking at Jacob Markstrom, but I decided to loop back and get Hughes back in there among this mix. Looking at the defensemen, the Rangers have been a tire fire, but Adam Fox is somebody that has still been kind of living up to what we expect from him. Looking at the results this season, he's still at like 57% in terms of goals for, expected goals for, while everything else has been a gong show around him. He's still been a Norris caliber defenseman. Now, we talked about it a little bit earlier where he's not really going to be in that top tier mix, but he's definitely a tier 2 guy who's going to get some 4th, 5th place votes, maybe even sneak on to 3rd place on a couple of ballots as well. He's been fantastic while the Rangers have really kind of plummeted over the course of the season. And then my last defenseman, we talked about him already, Zach Werenski. Just a phenomenal season, finally healthy and living up to kind of the expectations that we have for somebody like Zach Werenski, which means my goaltender from the Washington Capitals, Logan Thompson. 17-2-2 this season. Just a remarkable season in terms of the record. Has the save percentage as well to go with it. A phenomenal game as we're talking about on Wednesday, where he had a ton of saves in the middle part of that game. There were a couple of options from the Capitals that I'm sure we're going to talk about here in a second. But looking at the goaltending options and then looking at who I could replace some forwards with, Logan Thompson was the guy for me. So that's my Metropolitan team. Now you guys can talk about Alexander Ovechkin.
Yes.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's a credit to how deep Washington is that even, in this fake Metro All-Star team, it was sort of hard to put a guy in there.
Yep.
And then the Four Nations, they had 0 guys get picked. So it's like, a compliment, but I guess a backhanded compliment where it's like,
we
don't know who your best player is.
There were two guys from the Capitals that I considered here. Actually, the first forward that I had in the lineup was Tom Wilson.
All-star last year, by the way.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
That's a
fair
good
enough.
point. That's a good point. His 5-on-5 results this season have been spectacular. Like, he's been a legit difference maker defensively, while some guys like Alex Ovechkin or Dylan Strome have been leaning maybe a little bit on some of the shooting luck and goaltending luck in terms of PDO. Tom Wilson has not been getting that. Like, he ranks last on the team in kind of on-ice PDO. So those results that he's been getting has been very good based on the underlying numbers. I considered him. Then obviously Ovechkin, I left him off because he's missed a lot of time. There's been maybe some shooting luck underlying, and he'd probably skip on the All-Star game.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ovi doesn't go to the All-Star game anyway, so you get a pass to like leave him off the team.
That was the final factor there because he would probably just skip on it anyways. And one other player I do want to shout out here that I would have got in if it wasn't for the two-player rule. It's actually from the Blue Jackets, and that's Sean Monahan.
Mm-hmm.
He's been the driving force of that top line, which has arguably been the best line in the NHL this season in terms of looking at the goals for rate. They lead the NHL, that line, in goals for. Over 40 goals scored at 5-on-5 this season. They've allowed under 20. Monahan has been the driver down the middle with between Voronkov and Marchenko. He's having an awesome season, who's a legit contender for the Selke Trophy. Wanted to give him some love here, given what's been such a difficult season. He's having potentially a career year.
Yeah, and now unfortunately he's out with a
And
injury, which is too bad. But it makes picking our All-Star teams a little bit easier. So I guess there's no Penguin there.
Nope, Crosby there.
Oh, Crosby. I missed the
No
Crosby.
Flyer and no Islander.
Gotcha. So
I also consider Travis Konechny here,
Yeah.
but I gave the.
Fair. No,
it was too difficult to leave off
I
of
like the
Carolina
forwards over them,
Hurricanes,
yeah,
so
but-
I had to.
And the Islanders, you had to look 1 second at their roster.
Exactly.
Move
It's like,
on.
oh yeah, there's nothing interesting here.
No
Even-
top forward, no top defenseman.
Sorokin hasn't
this
been
season, and
killing it,
Sorokin
yeah.
hasn't. Yeah.
Adam Fox is on one of these pseudo All-Star teams, but besides that, both New York teams aren't exactly looking too hot halfway through this year. Maybe that would finally change if you book that trip to New York like you've always planned. With Skyscanner, everything from your flights to hotels to car rentals can be cheaper, so check out the link in our bio or description for that. With that, let's get into the Pacific. John,
Yes,
take
sir.
us away.
So Draisaitl is my Edmonton Oilers representative. We already talked about his Hart Trophy bona fides. And then Jack Eichel, someone who we didn't talk about in the Hart discussion, but at least deserves like honorable mention. Just the way he's evolved his game in Vegas since moving over from Buffalo is, I don't want to say night and day, that might be dramatic, but he's a legitimate two-way force under Bruce Cassidy, and it's continued this year, one of the best playmakers in the league. And then Anze Kopitar rounds out my forward group, and the ageless wonder at this point, right? The guy's 37. He's still so incredibly effective, especially on the defensive side of the puck. So, it was kind of a no-brainer to pick him when I thought about the Kings. And then we go to Quinn Hughes on the back end, Norris / Hart Trophy candidate, perhaps. And then Brandon Montour is my Kraken representative, and he might be the one that jumps off the page as like, what are we doing here? But I feel like, he has produced, not to some great degree, but I feel like when you watch the Kraken, you notice him a ton. He adds a game-breaking ability that they really lack, and they still lack. But, if you compare his season to Chandler Stevenson's season, both those guys were acquired in the summer on these big deals. One's worked out, one is not. And Montour is the guy who deserves some flowers for that. So, he'd be super fun at the All-Star game too, with the way that he plays hockey. For my goalie, I have Lucas Dostal of the Anaheim Ducks. And there is not a ton of options, honestly, in the Pacific. That's part of this. And you have to pick one per team. But the Ducks are a tire fire defensively, like literally last in almost every category, expected goals, inner slot shots, you name it, they're last. But their goalies outplay their environment pretty significantly. John Gibson has had a great season, and then Dostal, 6th in the league in goals saved above expected per 60 minutes. So you could argue that he's like a fringe Vezina contender. His workload isn't super high, but he is the starter there now. And kind of part of this new age, this new wave, if you will, of the Askarovs and the Wolves and those type of young goalies coming up, and we shouldn't sleep on Dostal.
I was just thinking the Pacific, even considering like if you could have doubled up on goalies in this division or like teams, for a goalie, like there's not a lot of options. Like Joey Decord, I guess.
I was going to say
Dustin
Joey
Wolf,
Decord
but
is
like,
but Dostal's been.
But Dostal's
phenomenal.
he's been fantastic. It's just the workload.
And if Demko was healthy, like he's kind of the
100%.
name of the division in terms of goalies. Like obviously Stuart Skinner wouldn't count.
Yeah.
Vegas's goalies don't count. LA's goalies don't count. So it's like Demko and the rest.
Yeah.
But he hasn't than healthy.
Just looping back, how close was Celebrini to making this for you?
He was on my honorable mentions for sure.
I think
him and McDavid and Mark Stone. But I just, their teammates were just sort of a cut above. Mark Stone, if he had played more games, I think I'm like more impressed by him on aggregate. But Eichel's played more and has kind of carried the team a little bit more because Stone can't stay healthy. So.
I was gonna say, how many times do you think since he entered the league have we seen any form of pseudo all-star, whatever you want to call it, without Connor McDavid?
Right?
It's pretty impressive.
Good point.
We might be the
100%.
first to ever do it, to be
Well,
honest.
that's what happens when you go only one per team, and Leon Draisaitl's doing what he's doing this year. He has been
Usually it's
Sorry,
Leon on
Connor,
the other
didn't
side
make
of
the
that.
Yeah, exactly. Usually Leon's the one who gets shafted by that. But I'll finish this up quickly with the Central. Obviously, Nathan McKinnon and Kirill Kaprizov, we talked about them early as Hart contenders. They are a part of my Central team for sure. My third forward, though, is Connor Bedard. I'll explain why I went with Bedard here when we get to the end. There was a really good option from Winnipeg, a couple really good options from Winnipeg, but there's one guy from Winnipeg you can't leave off this roster.
Yeah.
True.
We're going to my defensemen first. Two more interesting picks, I think, too, because they aren't huge names. First one's Mikhail Sergachev. I think he's had a great year in Utah after getting shipped over there. I think a lot of people didn't really... Was he ready to be a 1D? He's been solid there.
Yeah.
He's been really good on a
Plays a lot
team
of
that's...
minutes.
Plays
And
a lot of
has had
minutes.
to play a lot of minutes because
Plays-
two of the other top four defensemen there have been hurt.
There's
Yes,
Marino.
and so there's a lot of... He's got a lot of responsibility there. He's produced well. He's worth the money and worth what they paid to get him right now. And then Colton Parayko, guy who's going to be with the Canada team, and he's just big, and he's had a great year. He's not getting power play time, but he's doing more offensive work for the Blues than Justin Falk is or Philip Broberg is. He's been solid for them, and honestly, just not a lot of defensive options in this.
He could do hard to shot
In
at
the Central.
our All-Star weekend.
Hey, there we go.
100%.
Yeah.
And then our goalie, Connor Hellebuck. That is the reason why Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor are not on this team. I thought about going Jake Ottinger in net and then putting Scheifele or Connor up top, but you just have to have Hellebuck on this team. He's been that good, and Ottinger he's been good enough. And then I was like, there's no Dallas Stars player on this team. But I'm like, who do you go with here? I was thinking Heiskanen or Harley, but neither of them are having fantastic years.
Dallas
by any
has had a really weird year
Yeah.
where they're doing pretty well in the standings, but you're like, people aren't having career
means.
years.
No,
There's a bunch
Duchesne's
of
the
guys-
only one who's
Yeah.
having a
Yeah.
good year
Yes.
in Dallas. Robertson's not, Hintz is not, Johnston's turned it up recently, but still under a point per game. So that was an interesting one for me, and that's why I was when I was looking at this Central team, I was like, it's not that good. You could make a fantastic... If you went more teams... You went McKinnon, Rantanen, Kaprizov, Makar, Taves, or Makar, Morrissey, and... Oh my gosh, it's
Very top heavy.
Yeah, it's so top heavy. But it's interesting because there are a couple good teams in this division, and Dallas is good. They're just obviously so deep, and that's what held them off from not having a player on the team.
You know what's crazy about Hellebuck, and we obviously like to dive into advanced stats and stuff, but if you just look strictly at save percentage, he's got a 926. The league average is 900. He's absolutely
It's nuts.
lapping the league, and
MVP
this is his third year in a row.
MVP candidate?
Oh, yeah.
It's just how
someone we
often
didn't mention.
do you see it? It's with the... And then
Not
also, I think everyone's just scared after what he did this last year and then fell
Yep,
apart in the
right,
playoffs.
that's true.
Yeah.
So I think at this point he is just he would have to get hurt or completely fall off
Yeah.
to not win the Vezina. I think Winnipeg's goal right now should be managing his workload. He's a guy that wants to play as much as possible.
That's something that they haven't done, and that's part of the reason why he falls apart in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
so they need to probably limit him down the stretch. But at the midway part of this year, he's got the Vezina wrapped up, I think, and he's definitely on this All-Star team. Those are our four All-Star teams per division. You got to let us know which of these four teams would win in a pseudo All-Star tournament. Looking at it right now, I think I'm going Pacific. The goaltending is a question, but the forwards are just so good. But Metro's right there, too. And Atlantic, Levi, no centers? Come on. What are you doing? That was a fun little exercise, though, and I want to get into a even better game because it's time for some top shelf trivia. Midseason Awards edition. Levi, take us away.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. A little bit different style than what we've normally done. Before I get into it, back with the leaderboard. So Kyle's back, and in his absence, he happened.
I had a pretty good ringer.
He had to pick up 2 wins, which was massive. Well done, Josh.
I think he should maybe lose
big,
one of those, But you can have it for now.
We're a franchise, okay?
What you're forgetting
We've got
too
a
is
bracketed name there. It's all
He
fair.
doesn't get to wear the chain though. until
No,
the
no,
last
I'm not
one,
wearing the
This
chain.
guy's just jealous because he hasn't.
I'll keep
Hey,
the chain
done
off, but
anything in
what you're
trivia.
maybe if you want, maybe just a suggestion: take a couple episodes off, have Josh come in.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say,
get Josh to sub in
no,
for
no,
me
no.
and
Hey,
win me a
he's my
couple,
ringer. Get out
I
of
need
here.
a ringer. Come
Need a
on.
new guy. But yeah, so what we're doing today, Midseason Awards, is kind of the theme of the episode. So I went and I've picked 9 awards just in the last 25 years. Last quarter century is what we're doing, and it's going to be kind of rapid fire. I'm going to give you 10 seconds max to give me an answer here on each award. So if Kyle gets the first, he's going to have the first award. If you get it wrong, quickly goes to Aidan for a steal, to John for a steal. But each person gets to start with their own questions. So there's 3 questions each, technically. Let me just pull them up quickly. So we'll start with the Hart Trophy with you, Kyle. Only one NHL team has had 3 Hart Trophy winners in the last 25 years. What team is that?
3. Let's go Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh is incorrect. Just 2. Sid and Malkin.
Ooh, L.A.
LA is also incorrect. John with the last chance here.
It's either Blackhawks or Oilers. I'm going to go, or is it Red Wings? I'm going to go with the Oilers, even though I can't think of the third guy.
Edmonton Oilers, also incorrect. 3 swings and misses on the first one.
All right, who was it?
Yeah.
It's the Colorado Avalanche.
Oh,
Bears.
They got the 2 early, which Sakic and Forsberg,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
McKinnon
right.
got
That's
the-
I went
only
to
25
Sakic
years.
and McKinnon,
Forgot about
and
the
I
Forsberg
forgot about
one.
Forsberg.
all right, no points in the first round
Nice.
here. On to Aidan with our second question. We're talking about the Norris now. Only one player in the last 25 years has won a Norris on 2 different teams.
Ooh.
Who would that be?
2 different teams. Is it Chris Pronger?
It is not Chris Pronger.
that was my guess.
More recent than Chris Pronger.
Can I steal?
Yeah,
After
Hold on,
he's
give me a second here.
He's got it.
Who's winning Norris's? Eric Carlson.
Eric
Oh.
Carlson. There we
Nice,
go.
nice.
First
Nice.
points of
Close
trivia
one.
goes to John. It is Eric Carlson. Obviously did it with the Sens twice and then the Sharks once. All right, John's question here. We're talking the Vezina this time. Who was the last Canadian goalie to win the Vezina?
I'm going to say Theodore back in the day.
Jose Theodore is incorrect. Go to Kyle for
Oh,
the steal.
Are we talking about like a nationality or a Canadian team?
Oh, no, I'm talking about nationality.
Okay.
Canadian born.
At least that guy was Canadian.
Yeah.
Is it Martin Brodeur?
It's not Martin Brodeur
Okay.
either.
Wait, so you're telling me, did Carey Price not win one?
Oh,
Carey
right.
Price? No, wait. Hold on. I don't want to just
Is
throw
that
that
your
out
guy?
I'll
there.
give you 5 more seconds.
There's got to be someone more recent than that in the past few years. I don't got Carey's. Is it Carey Price or Roberto Luongo? I'm going Roberto
Marc-Andre
Luongo.
Fleury.
Marc-Andre
it.
Fleury.
All right.
I don't get points. I don't
anything.
get points.
No
for
Wasn't
this.
it my
points for
turn?
No points.
I guess no one gets
Fleury,
points, yeah.
just 1 round of wrong
One
guesses.
round, so 1 point through the first.
I thought
3.
that might slip through the cracks there. Yeah, 2021 with
I
the Golden
forgot
Knights.
about
They
that.
did that.
Wow.
All right, so
Did
3
Price
questions.
win a Vezina? Sorry.
Oh yeah.
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 He won a Hart. So
Yeah, literally.
I think he
Freaking
just the he only has 1, I believe.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah, I
that,
think
that
so.
1 year. All right, so we're through 3 questions. 1 point for John. Back to Kyle here. We're talking Calder. Who is the oldest player to win the Calder since 2000? Last 25 years.
Since 2000. Well, I know all time it's Sergei Makarov, but since 2000, I'm going to say it's Artemi Panarin.
Artemi Panarin is the second oldest.
Oh.
Very close. You're a year off. Aidan quickly for a steal.
Is it Kaprizov?
It's not Kaprizov.
Did he win it? I don't even know.
He was old as a rookie. I'll tell
I
you.
don't know why
think
Mike
he did over Jason Robertson.
Yeah.
Bunting comes to mind, but I know he didn't win it. Who was it?
Yeah, everyone wanted Bunting to win.
That was so much
Panarin was what I was thinking when
Yeah.
you got the
Yeah.
question. Oldest. Who's an old rookie? I don't know. I'm drawing a blank.
Nothing. Panarin seemed like the layup, but it was actually 2001 Evgeny Nabokov.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Wow. I would have
25
never
year
It
guessed.
wasn't happening for me.
25-year-old came to the league
Hell
and,
yeah.
and lit it on fire. So credit to Evgeny Nabokov. We go to Aidan for the next question. We're talking Selke this time. Of the 25 Selke Trophy winners since 2000, 23 of them have been centermen, including the last 20. Can you name either of the winners?
Either of the
wingers
wingers to win
that
it.
won the Selke.
in the
I'll
last
give-
25 years.
I'll tell you, it's 2003, 2001. If we're this is
I know
this
one
is
of them.
about as niche
I
as
think
it
I
gets.
know one of them too.
I don't know one of them.
You get half points for one of them?
Yeah.
No,
You only need one.
You just need to name
Oh,
one.
Yuri Letnin.
Yuri Letnin.
Yeah, that was
That's
that.
the only one
He's
I
the
got.
last one, yeah.
That's
He's
correct.
the only one I got.
The other guy, 2001. Shout out John Madden.
Oh, wow.
2001.
John Madden
Those
won
face-off
Football
percentages
coach
were
just popped on
were
in.
off
Wow.
the charts.
Yeah.
But yeah, Yuri Letnin, he won. I think he won 3. They just weren't all after 2000. A couple
Yeah.
of them before. But nicely done, John. Now we go to you for the Rocket Richard Trophy question. Just once in the history of the Rocket Richard Trophy has there been a 3-way tie for the winner, which was in 03-04. I'm going to give you the 3 teams of these players. You just need to
Okay.
get all 3 of them correct. Columbus Blue Jackets, Atlanta Thrashers, Calgary Flames.
Nash, Aginla, Kovalchuk.
correct.
Let's go.
Nice.
That's
nice.
correct. Nicely
Oh,
done.
we're in trouble here.
How
I got
many-
three. I got three now.
Three-
I think
Three
he's
out of
got it
6.
in the bag.
And you've
Kyle,
got 1.
And you have
So I'm toast.
yes, yeah.
What else is there?
Oh, what else is new, you know?
3 questions left. We go to the Art Ross now. This is a fun one. Aside from the lockout seasons, the lowest point total to earn the award since 1960 is 87 points. This player did it in 2015. Kyle, do you know who that is?
Jamie Benn.
Layup.
That's
That is
that's a
Jamie
layup.
Benn. That was
Yep.
probably the easiest, but I couldn't not talk about Art Ross and not talk about Jamie Benn
Yeah,
doing
fair.
it.
Poor Jamie Benn. He's always
87
brought up in
points.
this type of
Hey,
conversation.
you know what? At least we
Crazy.
remember it.
Yeah, true.
Crazy.
I mean, he won an Art Ross.
Yeah,
I
he
don't
did
think
win
he's
the
really
trophy.
all that upset about
Yeah,
it.
he did
so.
win it. That's 2 for Kyle. Aiden's last question here. Lady Bing. In the last 25 years, on average, how many penalties has the average winner
What a question.
of the Lady Bing taken? I don't know. I didn't know what direction to go with this question because it's a
penalty
Lady Bing.
minutes or
Yeah,
line?
penalties
I
are
gave
penalty
him a
minutes.
suggestion for this question before I get into it. Can you guys name the Lady Bing winner who went on stage with no shoes on?
No shoes on?
jeez.
Yeah, in his
That's
socks.
a shout.
Okay, the only Lady Bing winner that I can even remember, I'm gonna go hometown bias here, is Brian Campbell.
No, Yuri Hudler went on in his socks. It was hilarious.
Oh,
and then he got
okay.
into a lot of trouble for doing some
you know
weird
what,
things
I
on a
should've-
plane. That's a off-show
right.
conversation, though. Anyways, I'm just gonna guess 2.
2 is incorrect.
That's just
Go to
come on.
John.
I
So
was just-
is it penalties or
Yeah,
penalty minutes?
penalties.
Okay.
I'm gonna say 4.
4 is closer, but also incorrect.
5.
5 is incorrect too. It's actually 6. I
Oh,
thought.
I was gonna say.
You think because that's
6.
12 penalty minutes? You think it'd be a little lower than that? You
Well,
think
yeah,
it'd be
come
five?
on, you bad person taking 6 penalties. What are you doing?
I'll say
Don't throw no Lady Bing
the
for
first
that.
It
like
does feel like it's usually lower.
2000
Yeah, it's
to
usually
20,
under 10.
2000 to 2010, I think like the average was like 20ish, and the last 5 years,
okay.
like
Bunch of goons.
yeah, Jacob Slavin has won this thing twice, and he had I
Yeah.
think 1 penalty both times he won it. So crazy to see where it's come
Is
as
it
of late.
3-2 or is it 3-1?
3-2-0. So
okay,
this is
well,
the last
you
chance.
knew that. You didn't have to go back into it, but
If John gets this, he wins. If not, we could have a tie here with Kyle. And it's the Jack Adams Trophy. I'm giving you 4 coaches over the last 25 years, infamous coaches. You have to tell me which one hasn't won the Jack
Okay.
Adams. Patrick Waugh, John Cooper, John Tortorella, and Bruce Boudreau.
Bruce Boudreau.
Bruce Boudreau has.
what?
On to Kyle.
If
Oh,
he
I
gets
know
it,
who it
if
is
he
then,
gets it,
'cause,
it's a tie.
there's
And
one
then
guy I
a
was
tiebreaker.
I'm gonna say John Tortorella hasn't.
John Tortorella has as well.
He has
That was-
won one, so it's Cooper then.
John Cooper. No Jack Adams trophies.
Oh, you're on the
Believe that or
board.
not.
I'm on the board. Come
He's
on.
on the
I thought
board.
for sure he
Don't
won
you
it in that
forget
record
it.
season.
I thought he had
Yeah,
at least
It's
one in
only
his
up
pocket.
from here, boy.
That shows the flaw in the system, right?
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
big time. But
all-time coach.
nicely done, John.
Yeah.
I'm gonna chalk
Add
it
another
up
tick.
Bravo.
for you.
There we go.
Get this guy his chain.
Extends his lead to 3. Here, you want to throw the chain on for the outro?
Sure.
Yeah,
Pass that
give him the
around.
chain.
Well, no, now, John, you get to wear that on
There you
next
go.
week's show.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna wear it all week.
Yeah. Kind of hefty, but it is
Wearing it
pretty
home.
sweet.
But,
Let's go.
Yeah.
It's a
I'm
beaut.
looking at it right now, and I'm
very
just
heavy.
visualizing myself with that on, because that's what's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
All you can do is hope.
You gotta do
right?
some
Yeah.
homework
Yeah.
between now and next.
All right. Well, next week I will do my best and win that thing. But that is all we got until next week. So for all of us at Top Shelf, Levi Smith, Kyle Cushman, John Matisz, and myself, Aidan Thakkar, and our friends over at Skyscanner, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next time.